طلعتي ليلى ليلى. صاحت الأطيار فوق المنابر، وفاح الأزهار والروض عطر عطر. زانت الأوتار والحب حاضر. غني يا خامة بحسن ليلى ليلى. صلي يا سلام على الوسيلة. والشمس الآن طلعتي ليلى ليلى. يا عين العيون ظاهرت جهرا بجمع الفنون كأسا وخمرا خمرا. زالت الشجون طابت الحضراء بالسر المكنون من كنز ليلى ليلى. صلي يا سلام على الوسيلة. والشمس الآن طلعتي ليلى ليلى. ابن يا لسهم لما سقيا من خمر الأذواق فاني بقيا قيا. عليك سلام خير البرية. ما سقي المدن في حي ليلى ليلى. صلي يا سلام على الوسيلة. والشمس الآن طلعتي ليلى ليلى. صلي يا سلام على الوسيلة. والشمس الآن طلعتي ليلى ليلى. صلي يا سلام على الوسيلة. والشمس الآن طلعتي ليلى ليلى. كلما ناديته قال يا عبدي أنا الله. كلما ناديته قال يا عبدي أنا الله. قد كفاني علم ربي من سؤالي واختياري. فدعائي وابتهالي شاهد لي بافتقاري يا مولاي. فلهذا سري أدعو في يساري وعساري. أنا عبد صار فخري ضمن فخري واضطراري يا مولاي. الله 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 الله. كلما ناديته قال يا عبدي أنا الله. كلما ناديته قال يا عبدي أنا الله. يا إلهي ومليكي أنت تعلم كيف حالي وبما قد حل قلبي من هموم واشتغالي يا مولاي. فتداركني بلطف منك يا مولى الموالي. يا كريم الوجه غفني قبل أن يفنى اصطباري يا مولاي. الله 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 الله. كلما ناديت صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. فحطيب المسك فاح هيج القلب فباح، حرك الطرف فناح من غرام في محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. طيبة المختار طيبة حبها يناس قربا، ليتنا يا قوم الصحبة عند مولانا محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. ليتنا نلقى الحبيب حبه أضحى عجيبا، ليتنا نسعى قريبا للحبيب مولاي محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. يوم عيد عند قلبي حينما لقيت حبي، خير خلق الله طبي الحبيب مولاي محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. ربنا إنا أتينا من بعاد وسعينا، ربنا فانظر إلينا بالحبيب مولاي محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. صلوات طيبات للحبيب مولاي محمد. يا إمام الرسل يا سندي، أنت باب الله معتمدي، فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي قسما بالنجم حين هوى، ما المعافى واستقي مستوى، فاخلع الكونين عنك سوى حب مولى العرب والعجم. يا إمام الرسل يا سندي، أنت باب الله معتمدي، فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي. ما رأت عين وليس ترى مثل طه في الورى، بشرى خير من فوق ثرى أترى، طاهر الأخلاق والشيم. يا إمام الرسل يا سندي الله، أنت باب الله معتمدي، فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي. سيد السادات من مضري، غوث أهل البدو والحضر، صاحب الآيات
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا رب زدنا علما نافعا آمين. وبسند المتصل منا إلى صاحب الكتاب إمام أبو عيسى محمد بن عيسى الترمذي رحمة الله تعالى عليه قال باب ما جاء في وفاة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So we're carrying on with our theme, the chapter on the death of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam. And the last hadith we covered in the Mawlid gathering in Wickham was the one where Sayyidah Aisha says that I would always feel jealous of people who would die comfortable deaths until I saw the difficulty that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam went through with his death. And at that point I realized that a comfortable death isn't the sign, isn't the hallmark of piety. Because if the Prophet ﷺ went through difficulty and he's the best of creation, then who is in comparison to him sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And the death of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as one of the great indicators it is, and this is, you take lessons from everything. I remember there's mentioned about the teacher of our teacher, Sheikh Zakaria Kandahlawi, the bell would go off at the end of the lesson and they'd say he'd burst into tears. And they never understand why. And one day they asked him, I said, the bell goes off at the end and you see you crying. And he said, I always remember that one day there's going to be a final ringing of the final bell. And he said that you take ibrah in every single moment that presents itself. And I think Hafidhullah says that the death of the Prophet ﷺ is an indication that if anybody was to be given immortality, it would have been the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. And that you recognize with his demise that you will definitely have a moment where you will pass. And that's why you remember that everything will pass, but there is one being that doesn't pass. And that's why one of the most amazing hadith mentioned, Imam Tabari rahimahullah I think mentions it, is that there will come a point when the trumpet is blown, فَصَعِقَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ, and everybody will fall except for those people that Allah wills. And there will be nobody alive except for four. And that will be Jibreel alayhi salam, and Mikael alayhi salam, and Israel alayhi salam, and Israfil alayhi salam. And Allah will have them in front of him and he says to them, who remains? And Israfil will reply. The angel of death will reply, and he will say, I remain. And Jibreel remains, and Mikael remains, and Israfil remains. And he will say, take the soul of Mikael. And then he will say, who remains? And he will say, I remain, Abduka. And Jibreel, Abduka Jibreel, wa Abduka Israfil. And Allah will say, take the soul of Israfil. And then he will say, now who remains? And he will say, Abduka Jibreel, wa Abduk, as in me as well, Israel alayhi salam, the angel of death. Then Allah will say, take the soul of Jibreel. And at that point they say, as Jibreel's soul is taken, he will fall flat on his face in prostration in front of Allah. And then he will die. And then Allah will say, who remains? And he will say, Abduk, only I remain. Then Allah will say, take your own soul. And then Allah will say, now who remains? And then recite the verses, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. That everything on the face in creation will perish, and the only thing that will remain. And every time when he asks, the angel of death will always reply, وَجْهُكَ بَاقِيَ الْكَرِيمِ, that your noble countenance remains. And then finally Allah will say, who remains? And there's no one left. And then Allah himself will reply that everything perishes, and the only thing that remains is the countenance of Allah, the noble. And then he will say, لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ, who has the dominion today? And then Allah replies, لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ, that Allah the overpowering is the only one who has dominion today. That's the reminder that we take from the death of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. And then Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah, he carries on in this discussion and he brings the next hadith from Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, who says that when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was taken, the Sahaba differed in where to bury the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. Like they didn't know where to put, and the reason they differed is because they didn't know how to deal with the Prophet, because he was their first Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Like the Israelites, they had many prophets. For the Arabs, this was their first and only Prophet, so they didn't know what to do. And at that point, now the great test in the death of the Prophet ﷺ, and the great moment in the death of the Prophet ﷺ, is the rise of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, what can we say about the Siddiq radiallahu anhu? In Tabuk, You know, there's this famous story of Tabuk when the Prophet ﷺ said, bring wealth, and the Sahaba bought wealth. And Sayyidina Umar bought, Sayyidina Umar said, my whole life I spent in competition with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. But this time, when the Prophet ﷺ bring wealth, I thought, I've beaten Abu Bakr. Because I'm more wealthy than Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr doesn't have the money that I have. And he goes, I bought half of everything I had. And I came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the Prophet ﷺ said, what have you left for your family? And he said, I've left half, Ya Rasulullah. And then he goes, I saw Abu Bakr come, and he put down his pile, and I saw it was smaller than mine. I was, finally, victory is done. And then the Prophet ﷺ says to Abu Bakr, what did you leave for your family? You know, Iqbal has a poem called the Siddiq, and in the last lines, he tells this story, and he finishes it off with the two lines. He says, "Parwane ko chirag hai, bulbul ko phool bas. Parwane ko chirag hai, bulbul ko phool bas." This is Iqbal telling the story from the mouth of the Siddiq, that the moth has the flame. Like, the moth knows it's going to die when it goes into the flame, but it still goes in. And the nightingale, it has the nectar in the flowers that it keeps going for again and again. And then the Siddiq says, Siddiq ke liye khuda ka rasool bas. And for the Siddiq, he's just got Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's why they say, there's actually books written called the Muwafaqat bain Abu Bakr wa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whenever the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would say something, Abu Bakr never disagreed with him. Sayyidina Umar would sometimes disagree with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sayyidina Abu Bakr never. When Sayyidina Abu Bakr was passing away, he passed away at 63 years old, and the Prophet passed away at 63 years old. And he asked Sayyidah Aisha, he goes, how old was the Messenger of Allah when he passed away? And they said 63. And he goes, what day did he pass away? And they said it was a Monday. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr passed away on a Monday too. And the Prophet as he's passing away, he said, I could feel the effect of the poison from the woman at Khaybar. And they say the Siddiq said the same thing, is I can feel the effect of the poison from the woman at Khaybar. And the grandson of the Siddiq was martyred, Abdullah bin Zubair, and the grandson of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam was martyred, Hussein bin Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Every time Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu would rise to the occasion for the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, for the religion of Islam. And so when they ask, where do we bury the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because they don't know where to put him. Some are saying we need to take him back to Mecca. Some are saying we just leave him. So they don't know. Some say put him in Jannatul Baqi. And then the Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he says, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say something that I never forget. That the messenger, a messenger doesn't pass away except for the place that he is to be buried in. Like where he passes away is where he's. And our teachers mention, Shaykh Zakaria mentions, that if you look at all the hadiths in Abu Bakr narrates, they're all perfect for taking over the leadership after the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. Like where the Prophet is meant to be buried, what to do with the inheritance of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who is to take over the rulership of Islam, the Islamic Empire after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq has all those narrations. And that's why he says, and then Sayyidah Aisha says again in the next hadith, that when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he kissed the Prophet ﷺ after he passed away. As in the narration where he walks into the room where the Prophet ﷺ has passed, and he goes and he bends and he kisses the Prophet ﷺ between his eyes. The same way the Prophet ﷺ kissed Uthman ibn Mad'un radiallahu anhu, the first of the Muhajirin to die after the migration, the first of the Muhajirin to be buried in Jannatul Baqi. Sayyidina Abu Bakr does what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to do to other people, to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasallam. And then we'll finish with this hadith that Abu Bakr, Sayyidah Aisha again narrates that Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he entered on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he passed away, and he placed his mouth between the eyes of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he exclaims, "Wa Nabiyya wa Safiya wa Khalila." O my Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O the chosen one, or the one who is chosen for me, and O my most closest of friends, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The greatness of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, because now you have this big thing at the moment, Khatm al-Nubuwwah. People go and they say, Imam Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani wasn't a prophet, and it's a big thing in like the Indo-Pak subcontinental thing. The greatness of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is that when the Prophet ﷺ passed away and the false prophets came up, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq rose to that occasion. Like when Islam was at its most critical juncture, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was never going to let, he actually says that أَيُبَدَّلُ الدِّينُ وَأَنَا حَيٌّ, will the religion change and I'm alive? Like, is it possible that I'm alive, the Siddiq, and the religion of the Messenger of Allah gets changed? Like when they said, the people were saying we're not going to pay the zakat, and Sayyidina Umar said, maybe we should, because like we've got so much going on right now. We had to send an army to fight the Romans. We had to do all these different things. Let's just leave the people who don't want to pay zakat. Like they're the last, they're the least of our concerns. And said, "Jabbarun fil jahiliyyah wa khawwarun fil Islam." Were you this big tyrant, oppressor, powerful man in the times of Jahiliyyah, and now you've become a coward in Islam? To Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know, we're going to come to the narrations when the Siddiq becomes the Khalifa, and he says, I'm too weak to be the Khalifa. But when the moment came, the Siddiq rose to the occasion, radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa arda. And that's why, you know, Iqbal, he writes, he has another poem, it's in Persian, I don't speak Persian, so I'm not going to quote this one. And I'll finish with this. It's incredible. He says that the same way that Musa alayhi salam rose to Mount Sinai to hear Allah, the Siddiq was the first to climb the mountain of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to hear that revelation. And he says that the Siddiq, he says, himmate ooh. He just had that willpower. He can't even put it into words. It's just ooh. Like the power that the Siddiq had to keep the religion going after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he says, Thaniya Islam Ghar wa Badr Qabr. That he was the second to Islam. He was the second in the cave. And he was the second at Badr, standing next to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then now he's the second in the grave of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, buried next to him. We pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla, you know, because this is like tradition. This is what the Mawlid is. The Mawlid is keeping the message of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasallam alive. In the age we live in, the age of the false prophets, of modernity and sect and all these different things. Like for you guys, like one day, this Mawlid, we're going to stop doing it. Because we're going to go. And you guys are going to have to carry on the Mawlid. Remember we spoke about it last week. We go, but the Mawlid can never finish. The Mawlid carries on. Like the Prophet ﷺ said, that as long as there's a person saying La ilaha illallah on the face of this earth, Allah will not destroy creation. And as soon as the last person says La ilaha illallah, what's the point? This world is just so people can say La ilaha illallah. When there's nobody left to say anything, then there's no point us being alive. There's no point of our existence. Muhammadun dhikruhu ruhun li anfusina. He's the peace or tranquility that comes into our hearts. Wa shukruhu fardun ala al-umami. We have to thank. What's the greatest thanks that we can give to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam? To walk in the footsteps of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. Qadi Iyad, he has a chapter in the Shifa. He says the stupidity of those people that were given the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam as an example, and they looked elsewhere. Like he gave you the Prophet ﷺ, he said, be like the Prophet ﷺ, and you said, no, I want to be like somebody else. I've got somebody else that I want to follow in the footsteps. We pray Allah Azza wa Jal gives us the tawfiq to follow in the footsteps of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam till our last dying breaths. And he gives us the tawfiq to pass on the message of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال وأجمل منك لم تر قط عين يا جمال وأطيب منك لم تلد النساء يا جمال وأجمل منك لم تر قط عين يا جمال وأطيب منك لم تلد النساء يا جمال خلقت مبرعا من كل عيب يا جمال كأنك قد خلقت كما تشاء يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال وكف المصطفى كالورد نادي يا جمال وعطرها يبقى إذا مست أيادي يا جمال وعم نوالها كل العباد يا جمال حبيب الله يا خير البرايا يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال ولا ظل له بل كان نورا تنال الشمس منه والبدورا ولم يكن الهدى لولا ظهورا وكل الكون ينار بنور طه يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال يا جمال سيدنا النبي يا جمال صلاة الله سلام الله على طه رسول الله صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله توسلنا ببسم الله وبالهادي رسول الله وكل مجاهد لله بأهل البدر يا الله صلاة الله سلام الله على طه رسول الله صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله إلهي سلم الأمة من الآفات والنقمة ومن هم ومن غمة بأهل البدر يا الله صلاة الله سلام الله على طه رسول الله صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله وصلي على نبي الباب بلا عاد ولا حصر وآل سادة غر بأهل البدر يا الله صلاة الله سلام الله على طه رسول الله صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله صلى الله عليه مولاي صل وسلم دائما ابدا ابدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما ابدا ابدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا أكرم الخلق ما لمن ألوذ به سواك عند حلول الحديث الأمام مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم ولن يضيق رسول الله جاهك به إذا الكريم تحلى باسم منتقم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم فإن من جودك الدنيا وضارتها ومن علومك علم اللوح والقلم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا نفس لا تقنطي من زلة عفوا إن الكبائر في الغفران كالأمام مولاي صل في القسم مولاي مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا ربي واجعل رجائي غير منعكس لديك واجعل حسابي غير منقرم مولاي مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم والتف بيدك في الدارين إن له صبرا متى تدعو الأهوال يا هازمي مولاي مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم وأذن بصحب صلاة منك دائمة على النبي بمنهج ومنسجم مولاي مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مررنا حات عذبات البني ريح صبا وأطربا العيس حات العيس بالنغم مولاي مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم ثم الرضا عن أبي بكر وعن عمر وعن علي وعن عثمان ذي الكرم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم والآل وصحبه ثم التابعين فهم أهل التقى والنقى والحلم والكرم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم واغفر إلهي لكل المسلمين بما يتلون في المسجد الأقصى وفي الحرم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم بجاه من بيته في طيبة حرام واسمه قسم من أعظم القسم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم وهذه بردة المختار قد ختمت والحمد لله في بدر وفي ختم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم أبياتها قد أتت 60 ما 100 خرج بها كربنا يا واسع الكرم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم مولاي the king, the ruler whose edicts and wise rulings bring all blessings and grace by the might of the king. I haven't got the force, no strength between my sides, I feel such remorse when the maker provides. Allahumma salli ala al-Mustafa habibana Muhammad alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala al-Mustafa habibana Muhammad alayhi salam. Ana abdu rabbi lahu qudratun yahulu biha kullu amrin asir. فإن كنت عبدا ضعيف القوى فربي على كل شيء قدير. مني وشعليا وانا عبد مملوك والاشياء مقضيه ما في التحقيق شكور. ربي نظر فيا وانا نظري متروك في الارحام والاحشام النطق صورني. اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام. اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام. أنا ملي فياش الشعلية مني نقلق من الاستلاش بالخالق يرزقني. اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام. اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام.
Inshallah, the gathering inshallah every Thursday at Qasid Community Centre, 8:15. There's a separate gathering in the other room for the sisters and a separate gathering for the brothers and the youth. The youth dem, innit?
يا طيبة يا طيبة يا داوى العيان اشتقنا لك والهوى نادانا والهوى نادانا. يا طيبة يا طيبة يا داوى العيان اشتقنا لك والهوى نادانا والهوى نادانا. يا طيبة إليك نشتاق أضنانا يا طيب الفراق والدمع في عيني حراق. نشتهي رؤية العدنان رؤية العدنان. يا طيبة يا طيبة يا داوى العيان اشتقنا لك والهوى نادانا والهوى نادانا. لما سار المركب نساني ساروا دمعي ما جفاني أخذوا قلبي مع جناني. يا طيبة يتيما والهانا يتيما والهانا. يا طيبة يا طيبة يا داوى العيان اشتقنا لك والهوى نادانا والهوى نادانا. قال الله الملك الأكبر إنا أعطيناك الكوثر. قال الله الملك الأكبر إنا أعطيناك الكوثر. لولاك حقيقة ما كان أحد مما خلق الآن. لولاك حقيقة
خالقا ما كان أحد مما خلق الآن ولقد آتينا لقمان بك حكمته فبها يذكر قال الله الملك الأكبر إنا أعطيناك الكوثر قال الله الملك الأكبر إنا أعطيناك الكوثر والكل غدا بك مسعودا والكل غدا بك مرفودا والكل غدا بك مسعودا والكل غدا بك مرفودا ولقد آتينا داود ملكا قد أحدق بالعسكر قال الله الملك الأكبر إنا أعطيناك الكوثر قال الله الملك الأكبر إنا أعطيناك الكوثر
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله صلى الله عليه. Inshallah, see you guys same time next week. Hopefully in person. Assalamu alaikum.